Hi. Now, I want to talk about something that took place back in the 80s and the 90s, just after the dinosaurs. So, it's ACT UP, um, which, when it was happening, I was appalled by and didn't understand why it was being done, or not at first, especially. I was a closeted gay man, and they were outing people. Um, and I just didn't comprehend it. They were outing people because of AIDS, not because these people had AIDS, but because they were usually gay men that were working against the gay community. Um, and men, young men, were dying. And apparently this started with looking at obituaries and how they never mentioned that they were gay. And to me, this was all over my head. I didn't get this at all. What? I have been incredibly lucky. I've been closeted, so there has been no relationship, but I haven't lost hardly anybody to AIDS or HIV. I can think of only 3 people. One was a big one, my younger brother Sean. He's been gone now for 7 years. And he was straight. When I heard his diagnosis and it was confirmed that he had it, I behaved so badly. Not to him or to my family, but to myself. Because I thought, well, I'm the gay one. I'm the one that's out here having sex with men. It should be me. Not that I thought it was my right to be the one with HIV. Apparently there was a period, I read this years ago, where young men felt that they weren't really having the gay experience unless they got HIV or AIDS. I don't know. I read it. Maybe I read that wrong. It was a long time ago. It wasn't here in West Des Moines. But I was just so upset. I went out and I did stupid, unprotected sex things just because I was so upset and angry. So he was the big one. And I had a good friend from just after graduate school. Well, I was in graduate school when I met him. He wasn't part of the program or in school with me. We did a show together in Minneapolis in 1982, between the first year and second year of my graduate school. And before I left Minneapolis in 86 for Chicago, he had HIV. And he had it for, I don't know, some years before I left. We remained friends, but I must admit, when I first found out, and he told me after he was at my apartment, and we'd had not alcoholic drinks, but drinks, and sometime in the night I woke up, oh my God, did I drink out of the same glass that he did? It was so soon. It was like 84 or 85, and we didn't know. I didn't know. I went to my doctor and said, okay, I might have drank out of the glass that my friend who has HIV drank out of. And he said, well, you can't get it that way, but I need to be tested. So I was tested because I didn't know any better. He was alive when I left Minneapolis. And many years later, or some years later, I think it was the early 90s, another friend of mine who was in the same show, all 3 of us were in that show, it was a Shakespeare show, came to Chicago, and she and I just happened to meet. And so we set a date. She was in a show and I was doing a show, so we set a time like Monday or Tuesday, to meet and talk and catch up. And I asked after Alan, and she said, he's gone. Just real recently. And for me, I just started thinking about him like 2 or 3 months before. Just started thinking about him all the time. Right when he left. Right about the time he left. I don't know. So, he was the next closest one. I mean, I was friends with him. The other one was a guy I knew in Chicago. He was the director of a children's program. The theater that I was a company member was. Below us, there was a program for underprivileged children in the neighborhood that the theater was in. And I met him, and I did twice with his program. People from my theater company did programs with the children over the summer for like 2, 3, 6 weeks, I don't remember, but not every day, for like 2 season Thursdays, I think it was, in the afternoon. So I would go to work in the morning, and then I'd come to the theater, and we'd do theater games and theater things with the children. I don't remember that. But anyway, one of the directors, he was a very nice man, and I kind of got to know him. We taught the kids a theater game, or a little thing, Who Will Pay the Rent? And it's just a silly little game. We had them do improvs and things like that. They were small children, so there was no memorizing of lines or anything like that. But anyway, he was terribly offended that we taught these underprivileged children something called Who Pay the Rent? He said that's what their families go through all the time. The children loved it. They just loved it. They had so much fun doing it. And when I taught it to my nieces and nephews, they loved it too. That's just a silly thing. And all of them, underprivileged or my nieces and nephews, couldn't get their tongues around curses, foiled again, which the villain says at the end. But anyway, he found out he had, I don't remember, HIV or AIDS, and within like 6 weeks he was dead. It was a terrible shock. And I think he was the first one that I lost, or knew of. And then I found out about Alan a little later. And then my brother Sean, I believe starting in 95 or 96, I forget which. And we lost him in 2012. So I was untouched. And they were acting up because these men were working against the gay community, either being closeted and working against it. And it was the Reagan era, and there was no research done in AIDS, and there was nothing being done. It was gay men's. It was their problem. I remember, person after person coming on and saying, well, they're going against nature. They're getting what they deserved. Well, so, as I said, I didn't understand. I mean, that's why they were outing these men, because either they were working against it or men were dying and no research was being done. They were trying to get things done so that this horrible disease could be cured. And when I heard about ACT UP, like I said, I was appalled. I was closeted. I didn't want to be outed forcibly. And I didn't realize what they were trying to do, because all I could hear was they were forcibly outing people. But now, I watched this show called Pose, and it's a wonderful show and wonderfully acted, and it had this thing about, standing up and acting up. That's what it was called, ACT UP, and going to be arrested and be a part of ACT UP, which is something that I never would have done and didn't understand, like I said. But that show made me realize what was going on, 30-some years later. I finally figure out why they were doing what they were doing. Not to be assholes, but to save people. And I think, I heard that, but I couldn't comprehend. I hadn't lost anybody. This whole thing about the obituaries, there's this thing about, it started because some man was reading obituaries of his friends, and they were gay, and there was no mention of that. And you wouldn't, they were trying to cover up the fact that they were gay. So I hadn't lost anybody, so I wasn't reading obituaries. So anyway, I'm very glad that, I saw that episode of Pose, and that I understand now what was going on. And I feel very bad that I didn't. I was just foolish. That's what I was. Largely in life, I have been foolish about big issues. I haven't had to be, I just skated through. That's what I've done. And I didn't do it to be an asshole or bitchy or unkind. I just did it because I didn't have anything pushing back at me, I guess. Oh well. I'm going to try to be better now. Okay.